Hello and welcome to the top 4 round of the Osaka Championships that happened earlier this weekend. My name is Jake. I'm going to be doing some English unofficial commentary over them in case you don't know some of the cards or maybe want some English casting alongside the games. I've got the official VOD linked in the description below if you want to watch it without my commentary. Feel free to do that. And if you miss some of the other rounds like the top 8 round or the top 16 round, or maybe you're watching this a week after it happens and you want to see the finals, I've got a playlist on the channel of every single round from this top cut in this tournament that we've casted, so you can check out all of them there. And if you're here on the notification squad side of things, or you see this pretty early, make sure to check back to the channel, subscribe to see the finals later. So real quick, before we get into the match, let's hear from more from our sponsors so I can pay rent this month. So real quick, looking at the top 4 bracket, it is 3 BOA Hancock. So all 3 BOAs from the top 8 round advanced into the top 4. And the only thing standing left against them is a red-blue ace, right? BOA Hancock really busting up on the scene of this tournament. The most populous deck in top 16 with 6 entries. Definitely very nice, especially after winning different events like Hong Kong, right? Also won a Tokyo Japan Championship and got second place in another one, I think. Or actually maybe only got second in a previous Tokyo Championship. There's been a couple championships in OP14 to start, and BOA is heralded as potentially the best deck in format. So we got the BOA right here. This is the BOA from the top 8 round, for those of you who do not know, which was playing some interesting cards in their list with 2 different leader effects that you have to watch out for on the BOA. The first one being on opponent's turn, if you play a character onto the field, draw 1 card. So BOA really revolving around trigger bodies, and so plenty of potential to be able to draw a card off of that leader effect on your opponent's turn. And as we saw in the top 8 round, it is not a once per turn effect, right? It can happen multiple times in a turn. Also has that protection effect of Dawn ×1. When one of your 5,000 power or more Kuja Pirates type characters would be KO'd, your opponent takes a life. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ace tries to combat that and also beat out the BOA in here, right? With 2 leader effects of his own as a 3 life leader, being able to trash 1 card and minus 2,000 power on a character or leader in a battle, and then Dawn ×1 on opponent's turn. If one of your 6,000 or power or more characters would be KO'd, you can draw 1 card. Or if you take a life, you can draw 1 card. So going to be nice, right? Ace on the even curve, I think sometimes prefers that. And we see a couple cards in the Ace's hand already, right? Has a Cavendish in the deck. A card that we see on and off, but I feel like we're seeing more and more often in the OP14 format. Is going to potentially be nice to draw some cards. Both players mulliganing. So let's skip over to their starting hands. And so BOA on this starting hand doesn't look to have a very good hand, I feel like. Does have one of those cheeky events that I was talking about earlier in Sables, right? Back from starter deck 03, right? One of the first starter decks, one of the first cards to ever release in the One Piece trading card game, has gotten a little bit of limelight in this deck, right? Especially as a 7 Warlords of the Sea kind of card, right? You run Kumas, you run BOA Hancocks, has the ability to run Sengokus as well, which we know this player is running. So a searchable card to remove a 7 cost or less on the field, even from trigger, is so nice of a trigger in this deck, in my opinion. The Ace in their hand has a little bit of searching with the Izo, right, and has some draw potential in the Yamato and the Otama. Has a little bit of removal as well of their own. Gum Gum Red Rock could be a really nice card in this matchup because BOA, even though its leader effect says when a character's KO'd, you force your opponent to take a life. That doesn't mean bottom decking or bouncing back to hand. So cards like Atmos, cards like Red Rock, Jozu, going to be very important in this matchup. As he's playing down this Izo, we see an interesting card hit this Ace's hand. It is a Round Table. So Round Table, another event from the very start of the game, right? Some of the first couple cards to ever release in the One Piece trading card game. Round Table is a nice event that minuses 10,000 power to an opponent's character. Can be so nice for dealing with a big boss monster, right? But you don't want to utilize Red Rock or something like that, especially if it's a 10,000 power boss monster. All you got to do is just use 4 on Round Table and then swing into it with something like a little searcher that you have, like Otama, Izo, or I don't know, like a Garp if you have that. So Anyways, on to Boa's 3 Dawn turn. Doesn't have any Marguerites or anything to play, so is just going to swing Ace, taking the life and using leader effect to draw another card. Has some Otamas, but not really a 4 Dawn play, I think, at this point. Just has some Otamas, some Yamatos, right? Can play a Jozu if he wants, but I don't even think that's very good. It might just be more beneficial to just do some aggressive drawing on this turn, right? You have another Ezo in hand, so go ahead, use that. Try to set up yourself so that in your 10 Dawn turns and stuff, you can utilize stuff like the new gates, right? 10 drops does find the I Am Whitebeard event, so is going to be able to hit it on a 8 Dawn turn if you find an Edward Newgate in that time. And so may go ahead utilize the Otama, especially at 4, right? What you can do is you can utilize Otama to draw some cards and then have Jozu on the 6 Dawn turn go ahead and put the Otama back into your hand, bouncing back one of your opponent's characters, right? If they play something like a Ran, a Gorgon Sisters, right? Either off of trigger or something of the sort. Finding another Ezo on the draw is going to go ahead, find a Jozu. Jozu, again, could just be nice to be able to get a little bit of board control, bounce back these characters in hand, especially if Ace decided to swing 7 right here. Opts to not swing and only attach that 1 Dawn is going to put Boa into their 5 Dawn turn, and on the 5 Dawn, it's just going to go ahead and swing. Say, okay, one of the things that you need to do as Ace is not take life too quickly because of stuff like the 9-cost Boa Hancock forcing you to take a life. Stuff like Perfume Femur, right, coming into the hand. So I'm just going to apply the pressure on you since you haven't played Marco or anything like that. The Ace now using leader effect is going to 2k 1k to get out of the swing, right? This 10,000 power swing, and now back into the Ace's turn. I would say that honestly, Boa at this point might have advantage just simply because Ace doesn't have any like board presence right now, right? Even if there's something like a Jozu, the most that Jozu can really do at this point is just like get rid of Otama. So it is going to be interesting to see how he decides to play out this turn. Is going to go ahead, just swing 5. I like this swing here, especially if you plan on playing Jozu, because if the Boa takes and it's a trigger body, you could be able to bounce it back in hand, but Boa countering with a 2k to get out of there, and the Jozu bounces back his own Ezo and an Otama. Definitely probably the best play that you can make at this point, in my opinion. The Boa now has access to something like Silver's Rayleigh at this point, right? Because Ace is at 3 or less life and your Boa leader is multicolored, you can KO a character with 7,000 base power or less on this turn, which is that Jozu right there. You can really limit the Ace to 1 body per turn, and even though the Silver's Rayleigh would be able to be bounced back by another Jozu potentially in the hand, might be something that you just want to do anyways to relieve some of the pressure, right? Some of the quickness that Ace can build up, especially when the 10-cost new gates start coming down. Now that you're on the 8 Dawn turn, though, after using leader effect on that 8-cost event and drawing for a turn, you don't have any way to be able to utilize something like Edward Newgate on the field right now, right? That 10-cost character that is so good for this deck. So what do you do right now? Do you go with a Red Rock to be able to bottom deck this Rayleigh? So then if you went ahead and played Jozu to bounce back the Rayleigh, they don't just play the Rayleigh back down to kill your Jozu at this point. Goes ahead, attaches 1 Dawn 2 leader, swings 7,000 power lead. Boa is going to take, is going to be a Marguerite trigger, right? One of the very many trigger bodies within this deck. Is going to draw 1 card off of leader effect first before looking at the Marguerite. So finds a couple different copies of cards that you can grab, right? Can't grab that Pudding or the Sengoku, I think, is in there, but can grab the 4-cost Boa blocker as well as that 4-cost Ran if you wanted to, and is going to opt for the Boa Hancock. You do have to pitch 1 card off of the Marguerite, so we'll see what he decides to do. He's got 2 4-cost Boa blockers in hand, so might try to do that, or maybe even get rid of this Sables if you don't think he's going to play like another Jozu or something. But goes ahead now, goes and searches 1 with the Ezo, is going to look at that top 5 cards for a Whitebeard Pirates kind of card and find something like Atmos. Atmos, like I mentioned, could be so good. You can get this Marguerite off the field, right, to be able to control the board. in this upcoming turn, right? Maybe even this turn if you wanted to, if you didn't want to put the Rayleigh to the bottom of the deck by a red rock. But because Rayleigh is a 6,000 power character, doesn't need any Dawn investment to be able to swing, I kind of like Rayleigh better, but ends up going with the Jozu to put back the Marguerite into the hand. It is a brick and just establishes the body. This was nice as well, right? Because you didn't have to bounce back the Silver's Rayleigh. And so now, even though the Silver's Rayleigh is going to swing, he's not going to come back down and just KO your Jozu. It's much harder now to KO a Jozu. You kind of force them to have another Silver's Rayleigh in the hand at this point, which as a non-searchable card, because I think this person is opting to run Sengoku's instead of Lilith's, is not going to work or is not searchable in the deck. So starting out with a 6,000 power swing on the Silver's Rayleigh, not really revealing any information, is just going to be a 2K to get out of that swing. You like seeing just a 2K at this point, right? A little bit of over countering on the ace's part. So it's really how aggressive do you want to be with these upcoming swings, is thinking about the 4-cost Boa Hancock. You get to stack the top of your deck and also get Arrested Dawn on your leader. Even though it can easily be bounced back in the hand by that Atmos that you saw earlier, you can set up a nice Kuma play, right? Especially if you see something like a Gorgon Sisters or any other trigger body in that top 3 that you would want to play down off of that trigger. Since you're at 9 Dawn right now, you can't use both the Boa and the Kuma at this point, but it's just going to go in with a Sengoku, look at that top 5 to be able to find a 7 Warlords kind of card, and finds a 9-cost Boa Hancock. Might go in a situation where you just try to play 9-cost Boas back-to-back turns to be able to get this ace down to 0, and then end the game off of something like a Perfume Femur to be able to go for a game, as we see that Perfume Femur in the hand right now. Now goes in with a 4-cost Boa, so is going to go ahead and look at that top 3, try to see what they can find. Does find a 0-cost event, which is not necessarily something that you need at the top of your life potentially, but maybe something you want to draw on the turn. Also finds a Silver's Rayleigh and a 9-cost Bow. The Silver's Rayleigh, not necessarily a body trigger that you play onto the field, is something that can play its on-play effect, right? So could be able to get rid of this Jozu as a nice trigger. And then the 9-cost Boa as well, being able to play a 6,000 power body onto the field, could synergize well with something like that other 4-cost blocker Boa that you potentially, or actually you don't have any more in hand, but could play the Marguerite. The Sables is going to remove that Jozu, though, off of the field, as we saw right there, up to a 7-cost or less on the field for just 4 Dawn, especially with stuff like Gorgon Sisters and Rand that, even though we're not seeing in this game, are very prevalent in the deck. It's really easy to reutilize those Dawn for the Sables to effectively make it free almost, or cost way less than what it actually is. So having a nice decent amount of board control now at a full 10 Dawn. It's going to be curious now as an Atmos comes in. You know that a Whitebeard is not coming in, a 10-cost Whitebeard, so going to be nice. Is going to reveal the Jozu and Izo to bounce back the Boa. No free blocks, because remember, if you KO a 5,000 or power more Amazon, Lily, or Kuja Pirates type character on the field, you have to take a life. And especially with a blocker like Boa, that means that if that Boa stuck on the field and this ace swung 7, for example, right, you could just block with the Boa, let it get KO'd, and boom, your leader effect activates and your opponent has to take a life. One of the reasons that the 4-cost Boa is just so strong in this deck, in my personal opinion. He is going to go ahead resting a bit of Dawn for a Yamato, is just going to try to draw some cards, especially with the draw, right? If Boa is going to go this more aggressive route and just try to get you down to 0 as fast as possible, it might be really beneficial to just go in with these Dawn to be able to control the board on the Boa, get rid of this Rayleigh, and just raw draw cards to be able to have enough counter to be able to get out of some of these swings that are coming in. And if you can get out this Rayleigh with an 8,000 power swing, that means you only have to worry about Boa on the turn. But a 2K, 1K does come out. We knew the 0-cost was on the top, and I think Silver's Rayleigh now on the top of the deck. Going to be curious if he plays something like Kuma to be able to put that Rayleigh in the top of the life, go back up to 4. The 6,000 power swing is just going to be a 1K at most to get out of there. Now attaching one, swinging another 6 is trying to proc off this leader effect or maybe get another counter card out of the hand. Is going to go ahead with the Ezo, just a nice 1K right there. The 9 cost Boa is going to force the ace to take a life and heal 1 life, so definitely better than the Kuma at this point, right? Especially Kuma having counter on it. And is going to put the ace kind of on a clock at this point, especially with Gum Gum Red Rock in hand. Might be something that we don't even see a Edward Newgate hit the field in this turn. If we had one in hand, in theory, we obviously don't have one right now. And we might go ahead and utilize this Gum Gum Red Rock that we have to bottom deck the Boa, right? Especially with Perfume Femur being such a danger and you have no blocker Marcos or Utas on the field. You only have a limited amount of cards in hand at this point. So going ahead and swinging 6,000 power at this Silver Israeli, just trying to see what the Boa will give up at this point, especially if he can clear it on this turn with leader swings and or the Atmos. Would be able to clear the board entirely on Boa, but Boa would still be at 6 life. Now with the Rayleigh going away though, that means that he can focus the rest of the swings at leader, and especially with the potential triggers that you've got on the Boa Hancock. We obviously know that there's a Silver's Rayleigh right there after using this Red Rock to bottom deck the Boa. So we know that you should probably swing with Atmos first, but it's going to be curious to see if our player right here knows to swing with Atmos. Is going to go ahead, play down the Cavendish, not swing at all. So leaving these characters up as active, is going to prioritize using Cavendish to be able to draw to recur a lot of cards in the hand. Could be nice for the long con of the game, right? Having these different characters that can draw cards, right? Having a Marco potentially for a future turn. The Boa player is going to go ahead, play the 4-cost Boa Hancock, sees a You'll Frighten Me trigger as well as a Ran, but goes ahead and bottom decks the stack and was pretty quick about the bottom decking too. Maybe is just trying to search for right now the 9-cost Boa. Right, because if he can force ace to go down to 0, he's got the Perfume Femur in hand to just be able to slam 15 at face, and we'll see if the ace can even get around that, right? Especially if there's no other bodies on the field for the Boa. And so is going to use leader effect on this Marco and go ahead, play Silver's Rayleigh to KO the Cavendish. That's going to be such a nice play, right? Because especially when they just use leader effect on the Marco to pitch that away, now KOing the Cavendish means that this ace has no chance for draw potential, right? Like right now, unless they have another Yamato or something of the sort. They've just got the cards in their hand to work with and the cards on the field. So the 5K swing is just going to prompt the 1K Kuma. So what do you do right now? Do you go in with another Red Rock and Red Rock be able to bottom deck one of these? Do you go in with Jozu, right? Jozu right now would be able to pick up one of your Ezos to do a little bit more searching, but goes with Atmos instead and picks up the Boa. Interesting, picking up the Atmos instead of the Ezo. Is going to go ahead and swing now a little bit more. 7,000 power coming in with the Yamato swing. Is going to be 9-cost Boa, right? That's going to be the key card that they need on this turn to be able to put the ace down to 0 and put him on a clock. Aran is going to hit the field on top of leader effect going in with the swing. Now being able to reutilize Adon to be able to swing 6 at lead, and with a Slave Arrow now as well in the hand, you have so much counter as Boa to be able to get out of these swings and prevent lethal. Just go ahead, play down this Boa Hancock, heal a life, force Ace to take one. Ace now having Roger could be interesting, but I don't think it'll matter in the grand scheme of things. The Boa now swinging 6,000 power after reutilizing the Dawn with Ran is going to prompt 1K to get out of the swing. Could be something like Atmos that you could utilize. Could go ahead and use your leader effect as well if you wanted to, and ends up using leader effect on that one. 6,000 power now on the Silver's Rayleigh coming in. You got to think about it as well right now, especially because the Ran was played in the last turn. There is a potential that one more 6K swing could be coming in, and that's exactly what he does, right? Is so confident to be able to survive in this turn, does not care about Slave Arrow, is going to go ahead and just try to pressure, get the cards out of hand, and even with a Red Rock potentially bottom decking this Boa, unless a pudding comes down on the field right now, the Boa is going to be able to go in for a game, especially with all of those searches, especially with some draws as well. The 4-cost Boa manipulating what goes in the life and things of the sort. You got to imagine that the Boa has a Perfume Femur in hand, right? Has kind of been playing towards this kind of situation. And I think the only thing that you can hope for right now as the ace player is go in with the Edward Newgate, maybe try to find a Radical Beam if you play one, and just try to have counter in hand for the 15,000 power that's going to be coming at lead, maybe swinging at these different cards on the field. Because you're at 0, you don't care if Ran procs the Boa leader effect because you don't have any life to take anyways. Everybody that exists on the field right now for the Boa is another swing coming at lead. But if you play the 10-cost Edward Newgate to try to draw cards, then that means the unblockable Perfume Femur could go to the 9-cost Boa SR, which would be devastating, I feel like, to you. So I think it's going to go in with the route of Red Rock. This Boa is going to go ahead now, 8,000 power at the Silver's Rayleigh, is going to go ahead with 0-cost event, what we saw earlier in the game to get rid of this Boa, plus 3,000 power for 9. Does mean that if Ace wants to clear the board, he's going to not be able to hit at life at all at this point. So is going to go now 7,000 power over at the Ran. Could just be the 2K that you've got in hand with the Gorgon Sisters and also the Shakuyaku to be able to get out of that swing, but goes ahead with the Ran and lets that go down, especially as another 8,000 power swing comes in at the Silver's Rayleigh. As it's 1K power more, you want to save that priority-wise before the Ran anyways, and the Red Rock bottom decking the Boa Hancock. But with 2 swings left and a full 10-don turn, right? No need for Perfume Femur at this point. Just go in with a 6,000 power swing, get that leader effect, and now a 15 with only 3 cards in hand and no Dawn left open means, well, Boa is going to be moving into the finals. So we know that the 3 of the 4 decks in the Top Cup were Boa Hancock. So we know that the finals is going to be a Boa Hancock mirror match. I'm actually really curious to see how that is going to go because especially with the different board control, with the different triggers that you've got, how does that matchup actually play out? Going to be curious to see. And again, if you want to see that on the channel, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that when it comes out. And if you miss any of the other rounds, or maybe you're watching this a week later after I post this video, the finals are already out. Go check out the playlist of the Osaka OP14 championships that I've got on the channel, which has every single video from this tournament that I do to have there for you very easily to be able to watch if you want. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.